It's so close to Tsawwassen and Delta and to urban areas, it would make a fantastic educational site for young farmers. It's a fabulous piece of property.
It's good land and we can have like farmland on it and grow food.
Near the mouth of British Columbia's mighty Fraser River lies Tsawwassen, one of 3 communities that make up the municipal district of Delta. Home to some of the best agricultural land in North America, this region is the breadbasket of the province. But the farming traditions upon which this community was founded are increasingly being plowed under by relentless industrial expansion. From highway building to high-voltage power lines, port expansion, and real estate development. Tsawwassen finds itself on the front lines of the key battle shaping the future of BC, the conflict between urban growth and expanding trade routes to Asia versus the need to protect the province's increasingly threatened food security and environment. Concerns here are heightened by dire warnings from BC's Ministry of Agriculture, which found in a recent report that the province now imports more than half of all its food and is only half as self-sufficient in vegetables as it was in the 1970s.
The BC Ministry of Agriculture tells us that in the next 10 or 15 years we should be increasing the amount of farmland by 90,000 hectares or about 240,000 acres in this area. With the change in climate, we're seeing droughts and we're seeing floods in places that never saw such terrible events before. We're taking a tremendous risk if we allow farmland to be developed.
Despite boasting a unique agricultural land reserve intended to fence off food-producing lands, loopholes and industrialization pressures have steadily chipped away at this agricultural base.
We have to draw the line in the sand right now and say, no, we won't develop agricultural land.
What we need is good farmland, healthy food, clean air, clean water. If you haven't got that, you have nothing.
Like, leave that alone.
Harold Steeves has been a tireless farmland advocate for over 4 decades. We spoke to him at his farm in the Richmond neighborhood of Steveston, named for his family, which is the last of its kind in the community. The loss of 1,000 small farms in Richmond to housing development in the 1960s and 70s drove Harold as a young MLA to help found the ALR in 1973.
We didn't want to see what happened in Richmond happen in Delta, and that's why we brought in the Agricultural Land Reserve.
Nothing epitomizes this growing conflict over farmland quite like the debate over a 500-acre agricultural parcel in Tsawwassen, known as the Southlands, or alternately the Spetafor Farm, which stretches back over 3 decades now. It would be more than fair to call the Southlands the most contentious piece of land in Canada. Once an active and productive farm, it has largely sat dormant for years, paralyzed by developers' plans to build several thousand homes here. 2 decades ago, the Southlands produced the longest and most heated municipal hearing in Canadian history, which saw thousands of citizens speak out to preserve it for agriculture.
The turnout was phenomenal. I believe it was the mid-90% were against any development on that land.
But years later, the battle has flared up yet again, as the property's current owner, Century Group, pushes a new version of a plan that's all too familiar to this community.
Nothing's really changed except for the players. I think people are still just as resolute as they were then.
The passion always seems to be with those who are against. The anger that comes out when you actually talk about change, and yet the town changes with the inflection of time anyway, and we never seem to talk about proactive change.
You can't just put a sticker on half the population that says usual suspect. You have to listen to them.
I think something that makes it a community I'm proud to live in is people are willing to fight for what's right and fight for what they believe in their vision of having a good community to live in.
While polls have consistently shown a significant majority of Tsawwassen residents are opposed to the development, there are those who support the proposal's latest incarnation, which includes some provisions for green spaces, a horticultural school, and the promise of sustainable housing design. Skeptics see these inducements as an attempt to greenwash a plan that still involves building close to 2,000 homes atop prime farmland.
There's no amount of greenwashing that can make this a sustainable development. Housing is housing. Farmland is farmland. There's a lot of good things in the developer's plan that I think could still be implemented. I think there's some things that have to be removed, which is the housing aspect.
The developer has won acclaim for providing a small section of the Southlands to house a thriving community garden known as Earthwise.
We've got some wild blueberry and there's oregano.
We use our farm and our garden to educate the public on biodiversity, on gardening, farming.
It's this model many in Tsawwassen feel should be expanded through some form of land trust that would adequately compensate the developer and put an end, once and for all, to this seemingly interminable debate.
And if Delta keeps it as zoned as agriculture, finally it gets the message across that staying as agriculture. That's the most important thing to start with. Then I would hope that either government or a trust could actually purchase that land and then lease it back to young people that want to go into agriculture.
I would be thrilled to be able to look at being able to take a quarter-acre piece of land to be able to grow food on, and I would happily rent that or lease that on a yearly basis to allow myself that opportunity.
I would like to see the best of it farmed, and I would like to see the rest of it left natural.
This sort of model would likely incorporate a nature conservancy to protect the birds and wildlife who currently depend on the property. Recently, a planning committee tasked with reviewing and updating the Tsawwassen Area Plan, or TAP, the town's official community plan, counseled against the developer's latest application to rezone the Southlands for development. Now, under public pressure, Delta Council is considering returning the Southlands to the ALR, though concerned citizens are wary that under that system the developer could still declare portions of the land unfarmable in an attempt to secure permission from the Agricultural Land Commission to build some homes there. There's a dangerous new concept being bandied about these days to justify development on farmland. Agricultural urbanism incorporates green spaces and research facilities into developers' plans. The idea essentially amounts to a compromise from the developer. Allow them to build on some of the land in order to save the rest.
So far, the compromise has always involved development, and I think it's been clear time and time again that's not one of the futures that people want to see on this land.
This is precisely the path the Century Group has chosen to resurrect its development plans for the Southlands, which has included hiring a local university to lobby for its proposal. After having made seemingly objective presentations to the Tsawwassen Area Planning Committee and other organizations, extolling the virtues of the project, it was discovered that Kwantlen University had accepted cash payments and other incentives in a secretive contract with the developer, a relationship they chose not to disclose to the TAP committee, the media, or the public at the time.
It wasn't a contract for research, it was a straight-up lobbying agreement. It offered money to my school for a specific outcome, and that was to allow the development of the Southlands. I think it's done the developer no favors. I think in the end, it brings out a conversation that had to take place. You know, our university's reputation's for sale.
The development's proponents have predictably characterized their critics as being anti-everything and bullies. Yet these citizens have consistently presented a proactive alternative to the developer's plan, building on some positive steps Century Group has already taken with the land, and other leading examples in the region for sustainable urban food production. This nature reserve and park was once part of the Southlands property. The developer sold it in 1995 for $7.5 million to Metro Vancouver, then the GVRD, recouping its entire initial investment in the Southlands property. It is now preserved for use by bird populations and beloved by the community. Delta is a key stopover for millions of migratory birds on the Pacific Flyway. This reserve is an important resource for them and has become a popular destination for families from all over Metro Vancouver. Across the way at the existing Southlands property lies the equally popular Earthwise Community Garden.
Well, today's Earthwise's third annual Grow Local Fair. We're celebrating food that's grown locally here in Delta. It's about food security, easy access to food.
They get to quite a big size, you know, this is I guess that's close to 2 pounds. Yeah. You ever had a really big, nice, juicy tomato that
none of that size, no.
Spreads out over the bread, right?
I love being down here at Earthwise, and some of this is because I love the outdoors and I feel like I'm part of a healthy food movement. I felt immediately some sense of security and control over my own life.
We're growing green peppers, eggplant,
At first glance, the Southlands property, after years of neglect, may appear to hold little agricultural value. But it was once a highly productive farm. This handsome barley field, maintained by the developer out of sight of most passers-by, provides further evidence of the quality of the land. Soil surveys by expert agrologists have confirmed the property has plentiful Class 1 and 2 soils.
From reading the agrologist reports, from being involved in growing food at the Earthwise plots, this is an amazing piece of land. This is some of the best agricultural land in the world, and it's got an amazing potential for being able to feed Tsawwassen. And some of the numbers given to me by Arzeena Hamir from Richmond Food Security, this piece of land can feed the entire population of Tsawwassen.
If you treat that soil properly, it'll be the best land that there is.
Across the Fraser River in Richmond is another shining example of what urban food production can look like. This is the Terra Nova Community Garden, which plays a similar focal role for families here. Richmond-based agrologist Arzeena Hamir represents a new generation of residents here working to rebuild the food production that was lost years ago.
You know, what we're trying to do, for example, here in Terra Nova is really make learning about food fun. We have a very active, thriving community garden here, which serves the needs of 100 community gardeners. There's a 3-year wait list to get onto this property, by the way. I can see the demand being just as high on the Southlands.
The outcome of the Southlands issue matters far beyond the boundaries of Tsawwassen, for the choices municipal councillors and citizens make with this piece of farmland will set a precedent for how we shape the future of British Columbia at this pivotal moment.
What could potentially be happening on the Southlands would serve as such an amazing model for other areas of the world.
Despite the seeds of conflict sown for generations by the Southlands debate, and the scary statistics we see today about our dire food security situation, this story no longer needs to be about doom and gloom or petty divisions.
We really hope that we can work with the developer to come up with a solution that makes everybody happy.
Places like the Earthwise and Terra Nova Gardens remind us that there are very real solutions to these challenges that would enable us to take our destiny into our own hands. They show us that local food production provides many social benefits, like reconnecting with our families and communities through a healthy, rewarding, and essential activity. This isn't just about growing food, after all. It's about growing as a society, something we need to do now more than ever.